All right, so we are officially live. So let me see if this works. I'm looking. This is the first time I've done this. See if it pulls up. Yep. All right, we're live right now on Instagram. No, actually on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. So Jax Jackson is someone I've known for a long time. We actually just did a 45-minute podcast. The first one I've actually done. Still working on the graphics and the fun stuff, but we'll have that for you once I get going. But Jackson, there's so much going on the FBI. I want to do a little bit of a teaser here before we post the entire 45-minute conversation. But one of the headlines, and he gives, just so you know, Jax has been in the FBI. He's worked at Gitmo. He's been in Afghanistan. He's done an amazing job, and now he's in the private sector. But someone that, one of the agents that I trusted for years, and gave us some great insight in the podcast, which I'll post here today. But in the short, kind of like teased everything, Jax, I wanted to, one of the headlines was, the FBI is essential. We need it. However, you think, and I agree, that it had been weaponized.
Oh, I agree totally, Adam. It has been weaponized. You just look at the past, 10 years or so, and you can clearly see that it has been weaponized. It's no longer the FBI that was impartial and judicially blind. Unfortunately, it appears that the management, not the rank and file agents, who are great people, but it appears that some of the management in the FBI has, for whatever reason, become politicized.
Right. As we talked about, and this is again more in depth when I post the full interview, I at times would get attacked because I'm defending the Bureau at times, because there's some really good agents that I know that do a great job. Right. And one of the things I explain is, in fact, I have a couple that we will put on here eventually once they're allowed to speak, who were whistleblowers that had to literally fight for their lives, one spending more than $600,000 of his own money to clear his name. And all he was trying to do was the right thing. But in years past, when you had Mueller and you had Comey, there wasn't a lot of protection there for a lot of these agents. So if you were to come out and do the right thing, you're basically spitting in the wind.
That's correct. And, and the problem is that within the FBI, I think that you had a lot of management that viewed the rank and file as potential enemies. So they would protect themselves and go after the rank and file,
right?
Based and because of their own poor decisions within the management of the FBI.
One thing we didn't touch on as much as I would have liked to was what is going on, like literally right now. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Cash has not yet been confirmed. The acting director has been very aggressive, as have other acting directors and other agencies been very aggressive with a lot of the things that are being done to, clean up. There are agents protesting right now as we are speaking. But as you said in our recording, which we'll go out here later today, if you've done nothing wrong, you have nothing to worry about.
That's correct. And you don't. And I don't think that the majority of the rank and file agents within the FBI have anything to worry about. And I don't think they've done anything wrong necessarily. I think, once again, it goes back to decisions that FBI management made that have politicized the FBI. And now those repercussions are coming to fruition.
Hey, was there the way I explained it was there's like an internal battle in some respects with those in charge winning the internal battle because they had the army behind them. I mean, not army in reality, but the army of the strength of the actual bureau. And the example I used was the Wiener laptop, where I knew about it. I reported about it as much as I could. Fox obviously wasn't always as open, and that's coming soon. I'll have more about that. But I found out that how I learned was a person I knew in New York called me and said, "Hey, we found this laptop back in like the first week of September. It's now, end of October and nothing's been done with it." And Comey obviously eventually had to admit that they had it. Then we know about the Hunter Biden laptop. So, there's people like myself, we see these things, and some of us know more than others. And you're like, wait, they're supposed to be on our side.
Yes. And unfortunately, Bureau management is very good about circling the wagons and protecting their own.
Right.
And that's what they do. And and a lot of that is due to their own incompetence. And I know we'll cover that, or we've covered that later on in the podcast, which you'll be able to see. But the reason why is mainly due to their incompetence, in my feeling.
Right. That makes sense. Well, a couple more questions, then I'll get that other full interview out there. I mean, you're an agent. You've been around since the old school times. I mean, you talk about the guys that helped influence you and just doing the right thing. You've seen what's happened the last 20 years, 15 years, specifically the last 10 years, and how it really went. I mean, it already started 20 years ago, right? But in the last 10 years, it went boom, right? And now you're seeing what's happening today with, people just being outed, taken out, and the reaction from both sides. I mean, what are your thoughts as you watch this stuff go down?
Well, I think it's been overdue for a long time, personally. There is no place in the Bureau for politicalization of whatever views you may have.
Right.
The Bureau should be impartial and blind when it comes to justice. The Bureau, at least, how I learned growing up and coming up through the Bureau, the old school way was, despite politics, either you committed the crime or you didn't. And you have dirty people on both sides.
Yeah.
So regardless of who it is, did they commit the crime? And if they did, you build the case to bring them to prosecution. And that's the way the Bureau should operate and what it needs to get back to.
But it lost that.
It did.
And unfortunately. And, one of the arguments I make is like, you have, for example, the Las Vegas office. I was there for the Route 91 festival. And I remember someone telling me in that office, not a high level, but someone in that office saying, this goes away. And I'm like, what do you mean it goes away? And it's like, well, there's a reason why the people that are in that office are, have at some point they leave and they become the heads of security for casinos. Yeah. It's you have this. In DC, it's politics. New York was known. I was told New York was the rogue office amongst the Bureau because they didn't care what DC said. So you had these different factions. We know that in the Northeast, you had guys like Omar Montoya fighting to do things right. When you see those things and you hear those things as an American, I'm like, we've heard about J. Edgar Hoover. We know about those things, but I'm going, wait a second. I mean, aren't you guys supposed to be working together? And as I point out the negatives, I also know of people like, yourself and Maureen O'Connor in LA who caught Whitey Bulger and the ones that are doing the good work. And that's I got to believe for you people like yourself who've been around from this and gone through the different ranks, that's got to bother you.
Yeah, it does. And it smacks of narcissism in the regard that it appears that a lot of FBI management are working for their post-career job.
Right.
Instead of doing what's right and focusing on your career until retirement, these guys are becoming politically active.
Right.
While they're still employed at the Bureau, hoping to be a talking head for legacy media or for a particular group or even public industry. And that should never happen. You should never corrupt your morals for the expense of what's right for the American people so that you can get a high-paying job when you retire from management from the Bureau.
And a couple more questions, and I'm just teasing for those who just joined us. I'm teasing a much longer interview we have with Jax about what's happened, how this all began in his mind, and what it became, and some of the things we've covered and some of the things I've covered. And that I'll be posting here on X and also on Facebook and on my YouTube channel, which I'm now working with. We have a family one. Now I have my personal one. What would you tell if Cash gets confirmed? What would you tell him? What would you say if someone said, okay, Jax, we want to get your opinion on, and honestly, if Cash is smart, he's already doing this. I mean, I've met Cash before and I believe he has been. You go to the people you can trust. So if I was lucky enough to ever lead the FBI, which I'm not law enforcement, so I wouldn't be, I would go to some people like you and Maureen and Omar and the people that I know have done the right thing and are doing the right thing. Is that what Cash is doing? And what would you, if you were one of those people in that circle where he came and said, Jax, what should be done? What would you say?
Well, number one, I do believe that we're already seeing that right now. That's why we have the demonstrations going on today. That's why you have that 12-question survey that went out to the rank and file about their involvement in the January 6th investigation. obviously what you need to do is root out anybody that's politically motivated in management in the FBI. I don't believe that that's the rank and file. I believe that the rank and file is trying to do the right thing day to day. Their noses to the ground. They're doing their investigative casework. It's the management types,
right?
That I think he has to do a good and thorough job of going in and rooting out any on either side, people that are politically motivated.
Right.
And you just need to staff management with competency and people that are there to do the right thing.
Last question. And then I'm teasing in the longer interview that goes out. We have about 2,000 people watching right now. As a reporter, I got pissed because they messed with some of the reporting I did when I was at Fox and after I left. I was told I was going to be leaked things that would get me in trouble. A friend of mine protected me, and they tried to leak things. I know for a fact that I was spied on because I had attorneys from the other media people that were spied on call me and say, "Do you want to join the lawsuit?" That doesn't surprise me, right? We're all being spied on, really. I know that there was a lot of disinformation being put out. I know Comey was behind a lot of it. To me, as a journalist, I look at James Comey and Brennan in a different agency and these guys out there that did all these things wrong. And I'm like, they shouldn't be on television. They shouldn't be considered an expert, and they should have to pay or have some sort of ramifications for how they treated people and treated truth and how they politicize things. When I say names like James Comey and some of these other, I always say his name, Strzok, and the different agents that we know, we've seen the text messages. What should happen to them? I mean, should they be on television, for crying out loud?
No, absolutely not. And this is what I'm talking about, the politicization in management of the FBI. I mean, personally, you shouldn't. Number one, obviously, their politics influence their behavior while at the Bureau.
Right.
And then, in my view, that's what they were working for. They're working for these post-career jobs when they leave the Bureau. And they're looking for these high-paying jobs. The jobs are there if you do the right thing in the Bureau. And when you retire, there will be plenty of jobs for you to obtain. But you shouldn't be playing the master and sucking up to him, whether it's, a private company or whether it's politicians.
Right.
And you shouldn't be letting those potential future jobs influence your behavior in the decisions you make in running the most important law enforcement career in the world.
Okay, so two quick things. I know it's supposed to be done, but what would you tell the agents right now who are doing the right thing, who are worried about, because they're getting all the stuff's being thrown at them. Oh, the agency's going away. It's going to be dismantled. They're taking you out. The media's, listen, I was in the media for 21 years. I'm still kind of in it. I'm actually getting back in clearly on an independent level and have been. And as someone who's been doing it for a long time, I get very frustrated because I see my colleagues in some cases, either they're compromised, they're ignorant, or they're political. And I see the things that they're saying and they're out there, right now telling people in the FBI, you all are going to be taken out when there are good people there. So what would you say to those who are worried about their job, who are currently in the Bureau that have been doing the right thing?
Well, if you're doing the right thing, you have nothing to fear. Now that's easy for me to say,
right?
Because I'm retired,
right?
And I've left the Bureau
recently. Not that long, yeah.
Yeah, but I understand that they're feeling scared. Their fear of losing their job. I get it. I understand it. But they just got to realize and remember that if you've done nothing wrong, you can't. They can't come after you. They're not going to. And the reality of it is the FBI is not going away. You can't replace the FBI with anything. Nobody's equipped to do the work that the FBI does. It's not going away.
Right.
What I believe is happening is that Cash in the current administration is trying to clean up the FBI.
It's resetting.
It is. And this reset should have happened 10 or 15 years ago, and it never did. and this is the state we're in currently. So it needs a good flushing of the political bias within the FBI.
Again, I'm posting the long form of this entire interview, where Jeff goes into this much more in depth. Okay, last thing, I promise. What would you say to those who did wrong?
Well, there should be a price to pay, and I think the Bureau has protected a lot of management over the years from poor or unethical decisions. A lot of them over the years, and especially over the past 10 years, and they should pay. I mean, that's just the way it is. You know, if you mess up, you know, you have to take your lumps.
Yep. Okay. As we go, anything you want, the people that are watching, we have about 2,000 people watching, and this will be posted so more will see it. And again, I have a longer form that will also be posted separately from this. What would you say to those people watching?
Have faith in the FBI. I still believe in it. I'm disappointed in it. It's unfortunate that it's gotten to the state that it is, but it is still the best law enforcement agency in the world, and they do great work. So please have faith. Let the administration do what it needs to do to flush out the politics. But the FBI is vital to our national security.
Jax, amazing work. Again, for those who don't know, I've known Jax for a while. A fantastic agent. One of the ones I would go to, and I was lucky enough to have a group that I could trust around the country that I still trust. Some are still in, some are out, retired, like Jax is, but they've been great, and they're in it for the right reasons. They were in it for the right reasons in some cases, and obviously they see this as a reset that is essential to the future of the FBI, and honestly for us as journalists and people to trust the FBI. So I'm going to post a much longer version of this, my first ever true podcast that I've hosted, and I'll get better with the graphics and all that crap as we go along. But it's all about the information, right? And you got a little bit taste of it right here. So we appreciate everybody tuning in to watch this, and more coming soon, guys. I got to figure out how to end this.